made the whole. What do you do when you realize the world's so cold? There's a path called righteousness, but it's littered with snares. Approach with caution, a weak feel. It's God's hands to break. Falling away, got us going astray. We in the valley of decision. Help us find our way. When people destroyed for a lack of knowledge. How can that be? Mama spent 30 grand on college. The inner man in us seeks for greatness, but truth is like a gem hidden in the field. It's evasive. Who will prevail to open up the book? Who will excel into the veil and take a look? To those that have an ear, let them hear. Blindness and part is happening to us, but clear vision is near, man. We are entering the veil. Take hold, we are entering the veil.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome to Entering the Veil. The veil represents the separation between the holy and the most holy. Although the veil was torn in two, a separation still exists to this day due to our falling away from the sound doctrine originally delivered unto us via the Holy Bible. What this means is there is now a spiritual veil over the eyes and ears of the general public, causing a separation where none should exist. We are committed to helping guide as many people as possible along the spiritual path of entering the veil.
Shalom. Welcome to another edition of Entering the Veil. My name is Ishaq Ben Israel, and I am the host for this evening's program. I am joined with my brother, Big Benea. Shalom, my brother.
Shalom, brother.
And we're going to get into a very interesting topic today. This is Creflo Dollar's attack of Yahweh's law. This is a very interesting thing because we have a lot of people that watch church. Yep. They don't go anywhere. They watch church, but they send in a lot of donations. They do these things. So they are hearing this word, and we have a real issue with judging things by how many times we've heard them. And when the people have a enormously large budget, they can make sure that their programs and the false teachings that they put out, they can make sure that those things are aired over and over and over again. So then people then begin to believe that these things must have merit because, you know, you've heard them so many times. But we must remember that there was a secondary or rival doctrine created in the Garden of Eden. The Most High said that you shall not eat from this tree. The adversary, the devil, comes and says, well, you won't surely die. The Most High knows that, you know, your eyes will be opened if you eat from this tree. And he just doesn't want that to happen to you. So when, of course, they ate from this tree and they didn't die immediately, they automatically gave, you know, some kind of legitimacy to the word that they heard from the devil. And this is what's happening in today's churches. Our people are being killed, but because they're not dying immediately, they're giving some kind of credibility to this word that they are hearing. Now, we must remember what was said in Luke 16 and verse 31. It says, if they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. And one of the reasons I like to read that is people like to separate Moses or Moshe and Christ, and they are directly related. When he was talking about all of the things of, even Moses himself said, Yahweh your Elohim will raise up another prophet like unto me. So he was the beginning part of that. Yahshua was the ultimate end of that. Now, this attack against the law, I guess, hit another level when Creflo Dollar decided to say that the devil is trying to get you to keep the law. Now,
that's crazy.
I mean, how crazy is that?
But you made the point that the devil is the author of lawlessness. Like in the garden, he was the very first one to to start lawlessness.
Well, what does it say in the New Testament? It says he is the author of a lie, right?
Yeah.
It says when he tells a lie, he tells his own. He is the author of a lie. So when you lie, you owe him some royalties. All right? You know, he said, wait a minute. So what happens if you write a song? If you write a song and somebody else uses your lyrics, what happens? They have to pay you, right?
Yeah.
Okay? So every time you tell a lie, you owe the adversary, the devil, and he's going to get his payment sooner or later.
Right.
Okay? Because that's something he created. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you also mentioned about this engine that's pushing this lie out to the whole world. But it's easy when people don't read their Bible.
Yes. Well, we were not taught to read quite. Honestly, I didn't start really reading until I got in the Word. I never read, unless I had to pass a test.
Right.
You know,
Right.
And then that book, I throw that book can hold up my table after that. I never you went back to it again.
Right.
What we got in the habit of doing is allowing people to act out this word to us.
Right.
And what ended up happening or taking place when we were young, we used to have this book reports that we used to have to do. I would purposely get the books that had movies on them so that I could then try and do the book report looking at the movie. Well, one thing you notice,
Smart, actually.
it was never the same though.
Oh.
The movie always had something different
Yep.
than the book.
Yep.
And that's how eventually I got caught.
Oh.
Because one of them teachers was like, yeah, that was a real nice thing you did, but I watched the movie and read the book. Well, see,
Right.
this is what's happening on Sunday morning. Instead of us reading,
Yeah.
we want to watch him act it out.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, yeah, you get some parts that are the same. But then there's going to be some things where people who actually read the book are going to be able to say, no, that right there,
Yep.
that ain't right.
Yep.
See? But all those who just watched the movie, you're going to really think that this stuff that you're seeing is jam on because you haven't read the book. And understand, whenever there's a book and then there's a movie made about the book, they throw in things for dramatization factor. And they'll tell you that this is for drama. This is to make the movie or the acted out part look really well.
Right.
So we threw this in there. I want to read something in Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to start at verse 17 because we have to show that this doctrine of attacking the law goes directly against what Christ is about. Verse 17 in Matthew chapter 5. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Now, we can go into Matthew 24 and read all of the things that are prophesied to come upon the earth. We know that these things have not happened, right?
Yep.
So when people say, well, he fulfilled it. Wait a minute. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill all of these things till all be fulfilled. Yeah. So you have those that say, well, he fulfilled the law. What he fulfilled was the law of animal sacrifice. Why? Because he was sacrificed. Yep. You have to then ask yourself, how could he have fulfilled adultery? He didn't commit it. You can't fulfill adultery. How can he fulfill do not steal? He didn't steal anything. So he can't fulfill things that he didn't do. But he was sacrificed. Okay? So he could do that, and he did fulfill that. This is why we're not going out looking for goats.
Yep.
For our sins. You see? So that part was done. Verse 19. It says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, one of the least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So we have to then deal with some things here. When the Most High, this is the Mashiach. This is Christ,
Yeah.
whose real name is Yahshua. This is he that is saying, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so shall be called the least in the kingdom.
And notice it says will be. So that's future. He's talking future.
Very good point,
He's
my
talking
brother.
future.
Very good point. Let's get into a couple of these things here as far as these definitions. I want you to point out some things here, because when we get in the garden and we read commandment,
Right.
then we see this attack of the law. We don't really connect those two things together, but they are directly connected.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of this doctrine, for this false doctrine that's out there, they don't spend a whole lot of time going over the definitions and letting you know what certain things mean.
Right.
But to your point, for example, the definition of law, which is H8451, that's H8 or Strong's
Right.
H84451, and it reads a precept or statute, especially the
Decalogue.
Decalogue or Pentateuch law.
Right.
There. And then we have commandment, which is G1785. That's
And whenever you see that G, of course, we know
Greek.
that's Greek.
Right.
So we have this then, the first part was Hebrew, that first definition. Now this one is Greek. Go ahead.
right. And it's G1781. Or I'm sorry, it says from G1781, but it's actually G1785. And it reads injunction, that is an authoritative prescription, commandment, precept.
All right. So what we've heard in both of those things was precept.
Yes.
So we have this thing where one was law. The next one, even in Greek, we got precept.
Right.
And then there's another one.
Yep, which is H4687. That's H4687. It's a command, whether human or divine. Collectively, the law, which was commanded. And then it says law, ordinance, precept.
Law, ordinance, precept. And that Hebrew word is mitzvah. So we have the first one was law, which is Torah. The next one was commandment, which was Greek in tole.
Right.
Then we have commandment, mitzvah in Hebrew, and we have precept on all of those things. So we have the law and commandment is synonymous. So you had, it was a gradual attack against the law, because you would always hear this thing, don't keep the law, don't keep the law. But then eventually you started to hear this other thing about something wrong with you if you're trying to keep the Big Ten. So then there came to be another level of the attack. And a lot of people didn't notice that commandment and law are synonymous with one another. So he was just going on another level of attack when he then said something is wrong with you if you try to keep the Big Ten. Now, you can walk in almost any church in America and see the Ten Commandments displayed.
Right.
Yet, while displaying the Ten Commandments, you then have people teaching against the very commandments that they are displaying. And that is a serious issue.
I was going to say just one quick point on that. Notice usually whenever that sort of doctrine comes out, he doesn't read one scripture that says what he's saying. Like for instance, where he says that the law is of the devil. He didn't read that.
Correct.
He just said it.
Very good point.
His congregation just accepted it.
Well, I mean, you when you're accustomed to seeing everything acted out, then it must be true because you heard it. And then if you have the money to put it out over and over and over again,
Right.
We are the kind of people that base things based on how many times we've heard it. So if we hear a friend of ours robbed a bank and we heard it 5 times, the first 2 times we may have not believed it. But after the third or fourth time, we then start to give it credibility because we say, it must be true. Look at how many times I've heard this thing. Right. And what you may have actually been a part of is 4 or 5 liars who have agreed to tell the same story. Right. Okay? They are in collusion with one another. I want to read something here in 1 John chapter 2. I'm going to just read a couple of lines here. It says, he that says, I know him, and keeps not his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. So then what we have to do then, or what we've watched Creflo do, is then try to transform the law into something else. And we're gonna get to that. 1 John chapter 5 and verse 2 says, by this we know that we love the children of God, Elohim, when we love Elohim and keep his commandments. And people will always tell you, God is love. God is love. Wait a minute. He's telling you this is love, that we keep his commandments. He has given us an order. He has given us the things that display whether or not we love him. Okay, but now we have a very well-to-do televangelist telling us that it is the devil that is trying to get you to keep these things. Now, there's a reason why I am primarily staying in the New Testament, because
I was getting ready to say that.
and you know why? Tell me why.
Well, yeah, because they'll say if you read it from the Old Testament, it's done away with.
Exactly.
But they even go further. They have this thing called pre-cross and post-cross. They'll say that after Christ died on the cross, see, that's when the law was done away with. So any scriptures that deal with the law that was pre-cross, then that they don't go by that. But see, with the scriptures, the beauty of the scriptures that you picked out, you're reading post-cross. So after he died on the cross, this this definition of law still stands. I mean, according to what you're reading.
I've never heard of that, brother. Yeah. Pre-cross and post-cross, but that is why we would go into and read these things, because we know that there are certain individuals that are anything that we read out of the Old Testament, they're going to throw it out unless it's talking about tithing.
Right. Oh.
And that is hypocrisy on a whole nother level, but that is hypocrisy that we were taught. We didn't just get that on our own.
Right.
That was acted out to us over and over and over again.
Right.
Now in 1 John chapter 5 and verse 3, it says, for this is the love of God. Wait a minute. Now see, you hear, I remember hearing it sounds so sweet. God is love. Oh, they would say it so sweet. It says, wait a minute, this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And I love this part. And his commandments are not grievous.
No.
See, what the adversary, the devil, wants you to do, and he uses his teachers and his false prophets to do this, his false apostles to do this, to make you believe that it's going to be so difficult for you to keep the law of the Most High.
Yep.
Like, it is not difficult for a person who has general love in their heart not to want to murder a man.
Right.
It is. They want to make you believe that it is so hard to keep the law. Like I really need to look at the law to remember not to steal. Does that belong to you? Well, leave it alone.
Right. Yep.
So how can something that holy be made? Why would the devil get anything out of you walking in order? So, but you see how this thing has been turned around.
Right. Now, I was going to point out is the beauty of these scriptures too is it's like I know for a fact that one part of the doctrine that's taught is this is term called agape love, and that's actually the Greek word for love, and so they push agape love. You must love each other using agape love. But the beauty of it is that the verse 1 John chapter 5 verse 3, the one you just read, it says, "For this is the love. This is the love of Yahweh." Well, the word love is agape. So the very word that they preach from the pulpit to do is what you're reading.
Interesting.
And what you're doing is that you're reading the definition of it. That's what we were talking about before.
Right.
They never read the definition of the thing that they're preaching, because if they read the definition, they would get in trouble.
Right.
About the scriptures.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So let's go into these things here, because I have an issue with, and the Bible has an issue with it, because it says, woe to him that calls good evil and that calls evil good. So when you get to the point of declaring that it is Satan that's trying to get you to keep the law, you have a serious line has been drawn, and it's been, stated that at this point, they're making it known which side they're on, and it's not on the side of the Most High. But the people who blindly worship are not going to be able to see that, and that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and so I think we're going over to Romans 8, verse 1, and this has to do with woe unto them that calls good evil. So we're going to look at Romans 8, verse 1, and it reads, "There is therefore no condemnation to them which are in Yahshua, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit." And I guess to Sunday morning Christians, this should sound familiar, because I mean, this is like this is one of those Bible quotes that you hear all the time.
Oh yeah.
Where they're trying to profess that, hey, you don't have to do the law.
Right.
Why don't you have to do the law? Well, because there is no condemnation.
Right.
But what they fail to do is to read the part after the comma where it says,
you got it,
who walk not after the flesh,
you got
but
and
after the Spirit.
That is brother, that is so deep, because what I hear a lot of times is a half statement taken out of context, but because we're accustomed to looking at everything get acted out instead of reading and studying to show ourselves approved. Once we hear that, and it's then the music come on and we start dancing and shouting, we didn't even read the rest of the sentence.
Nope.
We shouting and dancing at. This is how it goes. There is therefore now no condemnation. We gone. We gone. Somebody just took off. Somebody just jumped over a pew, and they gone.
Right.
See, so the rest of that is never known, because now the music is playing. Now the people are dancing. So what happens? Your book go down. Even if you had it in your hand, the book went down, because there's a whole lot of music and jumping and shouting and dancing going on. So you never even got the rest of that sentence.
Right.
I mean, what if I were to say, put it in context and take your emotions out of it. Put some common sense, together with reading this book. What if I just gave you half of a sentence? The cow jumped over the... Now see, you're going to automatically be like, you jumped over what, brother? The moon, brother. Moon, finish this.
Right.
We never asked, could you finish the rest of that statement? Go ahead.
Yeah. So back to Romans chapter 8 and verse 2. And this is another popular verse where it says, "For the law of the Spirit of life in Yahshua HaMashiach hath made me free from the law of sin and death."
Ooh,
So I don't have to do the law, because it made me free from the law of sin and death.
Right. And here's where that is rather interesting. What they do not realize is what the law of sin and death is.
Yes.
The law of sin meant and death, whenever there was sin, something had to die. That's animal sacrifice. So he's letting you know exactly what law has been done away with. The law of the Spirit of life in the Mashiach, Yahshua. Why? Because he was offered as a sacrifice. It has made me free from the law of sin and death. So the law said, whenever there was a sin committed, there must be blood shed to make an atonement for that sin.
Right.
So that is sin, then death. It was completely back and forth. Sin, death, sin, death. Something has to die. See? So now, because we now have this perfect sacrifice, I am free from the law of sin and death. I don't have to go and kill something because I committed a sin. Because a perfect sacrifice has already been offered up for me.
Yep.
That don't mean I can go sleep with my neighbor's wife. That don't mean I can go and steal his car. See, there are still laws that are in effect, and it's funny. The very people who say there is no law are the same ones that get mad when they come out in their Costco. Well, call the police. What you doing that for? I thought you said it wasn't any law. Why are you upset because your car is gone?
Right.
Why are you upset somebody's crawling out of your bedroom window? See, so there's some hypocrisy in dealing with that we just throw everything out, but we'll pull whatever in we want when it suits us.
Right, because to perpetuate that doctrine, you have to close the book. Like after you just read, was that verse 2? You have to close the book on that, because if you keep reading, it'll get you in trouble.
Right. Let's keep reading.
so verse 3, we'll keep reading. It says, Romans chapter 8, verse 3 says, "For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Yahweh sending his own son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin condemned sin in the flesh."
So automatically dealing with the sacrifice of Christ. Go ahead.
Yep. So, and was it verse 4 says that the righteousness, here we go, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, comma, who walk not after the flesh,
there you go,
but after the spirit.
Right. And we can find in here where we can go and look up and find out, what are the things after the flesh? It's lasciviousness, adultery, fornication, all of the things that the commandments tell you not to do.
Yes. Yes.
See? So anybody that's telling you that the devil is trying to get you to keep the law, they're trying to sow discord against Yahweh's word and to get you to worship the adversary, the devil. Because there are people and ministers who are openly Luciferian worshipers, but they're trying to trick their people into worshiping the adversary, the devil. But they do it openly. That's why they have all of these riches, and we're going to get to that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, and to your point, that's what like verse 5 says, "For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh."
Yes.
So they that after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh. And it says the things of the flesh, and it says, "But they that are after the spirit, the things of the spirit." And then here's the kicker where it says, verse 6, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Then it says, verse 7, "Because the carnal mind is enmity or hatred against Elohim, for it is not subject to the law of Elohim, neither can it be."
So when something then is not subject to the law, and this is what our people are being taught. So this means that they are trying to teach you without telling you that they're basically trying to funnel you to the adversary, the devil, by making you believe that you're not subject to the law,
right?
That you don't have to do. They have a place here on earth for people who don't keep the law. They call it jail. So, and in the spiritual realm, they have a place for the people who don't keep the law. It's called the lake of fire. So we have this thing. With just because you read that, not subject to the law, I want to go to Luke chapter 4, and I want to read a couple things out of it. Now, this is what the adversary, the devil, did concerning the Messiah. All right, Luke chapter 4, and I'm gonna start this at verse 5, and it says, "And the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time." So the adversary, the devil, has power on earth, and he's trying to entice Christ with power. Because see, we have now somehow made the correlation of blessing and money. Anytime somebody says, "I'm blessed," that's supposed to mean they're rich.
Right.
So it's like we don't believe that there can be any other way of being blessed other than having money.
Right.
So verse 6, and the devil said unto him, all this power will I give to you, and the glory of them. For that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. So everybody believes that every blessing that they've received, it must have come from God. Understand, the adversary, the devil, is saying, I have this power and I will bless you. Verse 7, if you therefore will worship me, all shall be yours. Now, in the church, the first thing we used to hear on Sunday morning is the biggest thing that we would hear: praise and worship.
Oh.
That's the main thing, praise and worship. When you deal with this, Yahweh has statutes. He has direction. He is an Elohim of order, not a God of chaos.
Right.
So, but you find the difference here. Okay? The adversary says, you don't have to follow any law. Wait a minute. He says Satan is trying to get you to keep the law. What does Satan say here? If therefore you will worship me. He says absolutely nothing about law. He says absolutely nothing about order.
Yep.
All I want is worship. Sing and dance and shout. That's what I want. Worship. And since you're going to worship Lucifer, the illuminated one, I need you to do it on the sun's day. Sunday. All right?
Yep.
Because if you were following order, you would then show up on the Sabbath day or on Saturday.
Yep.
And listen to what the Messiah ended up saying. And Yahshua answered and said unto him, get thee behind me, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Adonai thy Elohim. Now, he's going to go on a whole another level.
Uh-oh.
And him only shall you serve. You notice he has servitude in here. Then he also has worship. The adversary, the devil, only wanted worship. He said, you ain't got to serve nothing. You ain't got to follow no rules. You don't have to do anything.
You have to do nothing.
Just all I need you to do is show up and sing and shout. See? So now understanding that this whole statement of Satan is trying to get you to keep the law was to make you hate the law. But according to what's written here, the law is holy.
Yeah. They try to make the law bad. Like it's evil. Like it's well, I guess just like Creflo said, the laws of the devil. That's what he said. But we know that the law is good because the word says it's good.
Right.
And we can look at that in Romans 7 verse 12. So Romans chapter 7 verse 12 reads, wherefore the law is holy.
Right. Now, this New Testament we're reading, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're still in the New Testament.
Right.
Because we're still in the New Testament, and what you just read says the law is holy. But Creflo said that Satan trying to get you to keep the law. Now, why would Satan try to get you to keep something that's holy? Why would he do that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Wherefore the law is holy, and the commandment is holy.
Wait a minute. He said if you're trying to keep the Big Ten, something wrong with you. So this book does not agree with Creflo at all.
No.
Go ahead.
And just and good. Verse 13. Was then that which is good made death unto me? Yahweh forbid. But sin but sin that it might appear sin worketh death in me by that which is good, that sin by the commandment might become exceedingly sinful. For verse 14, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin.
The law is spiritual. So the law is holy. The law is just. The law is good. The law is spiritual. Why would Satan want you to keep all those things? Go ahead.
I was going to say, even the apostle Shaul in verse 22, he shows you what law what law he adheres to. Verse 22, if you drop down, it says, for I delight in the law of Elohim after the inward man.
Right.
They don't delight in the law on the Sunday morning.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how the apostle Shaul has a different doctrine than what's going out from the pulpit.
Well, when you get right down to it, that doctrine, when you just can talk it out, then another doctrine can be introduced. We all know that we can go into Exodus and read the commandments.
Yep.
Now, I could very easily go to Exodus and read the commandments, but of course, I would have a lot of people telling me how those things are not valid because I'm reading them out of that part of the book. So what we're going to do is go to this part here in Romans 13, and I want to read Romans 13 and verse 9. It says, "For this, you shall not commit adultery." Now, these are the very same things that are in Exodus. Okay? But I know if I read them there, I know what would happen. So we're going to read them here in the New Testament. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not kill. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Now, where have we heard these things? Right, the law. The commandment is synonymous with law. Yep. You shall not covet. That is desiring something that does not belong to you, that is not yours. So before you steal, you have first coveted. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this saying, namely, you shall love thy neighbor as thyself. So you hear a lot of statements where people will throw out these terms, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself, not understanding, back up, read the things that came before that. That means keeping the commandments toward your brother. Didn't it say love is the keeping the commandments? Yeah. Okay. So if I love my neighbor, then that means I'm going to keep the commandments concerning my neighbor. That means I'm not going to commit adultery. I'm not going to sleep with his wife. All right. I'm not going to go and try to kill him. I am not going to steal from him. I'm not going to tell lies on him. And I'm not going to desire his stuff. See, that's what Covington, if you covet something, you having a desire for something that does not belong to you.
Yeah. And notice it's open-ended because it says, and if there be any other commandment. So it's not just these that we have to do. Now,
it's interesting in even dealing with coveting, because there was a statement that was made, and this was an open thing said on a video. It wasn't like, I mean, this was during one of Creflo's teaching. He said, you can have sex with everyone in the church. You're still gonna go to heaven. You're just gonna lose things here on earth. My mouth flew open. I couldn't figure out why there were people still sitting there at that point. And not only did they come there, I think, I think more came at that point. Right. It was amazing to me that how is it that we could not hear that there is something seriously wrong with that doctrine, that you can lay with everyone in the church, but you're still going to go to heaven. You're just going to lose some things on earth. But there are some things that are written here that says otherwise.
Yeah, and that's that once saved, always saved doctrine. That's what you're talking about. But if we go over to Hebrews, let's see, Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 4. So Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4 says, marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled. But whoremongers,
see, go ahead,
and adulterers, Elohim will judge.
Wait a minute now. Yeah. Wait a minute. So once again, the New Testament says one thing. Creflo Dollar says something else. He says you can lay with anybody you want to all throughout the church. So you don't even have to recognize the church as a holy place. You can just jump around within the church, and that's completely okay, and you're still going to go to heaven. Yet, this word says, whoremongers will be judged.
And not only that, in Revelations 22, verse 14, it tells you who's going to be outside the kingdom. Where it says, verse 14, it says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life.
Okay, so wait a minute. If you got right to the tree of life, this is the tree that the devil did not tease us with.
Right.
What he wanted to tease us with was with knowledge that destroyed us.
Right.
There was a whole nother tree that if we ate from that tree, we would live forever. So now this gives the possibility, this gives us the opportunity to live forever. Okay, go ahead.
Yep. It says that they may have the right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city.
Oh.
So you may come in, and it says, verse 15, it says, for without, so outside, right, are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers.
Wow. The very thing. So then you have to ask yourself, if this word says that this is what's going to happen to whoremongers, Creflo then tells you that it's okay to be a whoremonger.
Right.
Then he is secretly worshiping the adversary, the devil, and trying to convince you to worship the adversary, the devil, without telling you that that's what you're doing. And this is one of those things where the people are really being slayed by this doctrine.
Right.
Now, when we deal with what Christ did, as far as dealing with the law, we can find this in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. Matter of fact, the Messiah fulfills some things in the law as far as what was said about the law, about magnifying it.
And that's in Isaiah chapter 42, verse 21. So Isaiah chapter 42, verse 21 reads, Elohim is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable.
Magnify the law. Now, what we see by the televangelists is they're minimizing the law. The Most High said he was going to magnify the law. Now, I know there's already some Sunday worshipers that have already, they've gotten upset. They went to that old covenant. They're going to that bondage. They're in that bondage. You don't even read that bondage. Now, let me show you how within the New Testament, Christ actually fulfilled this thing as far as magnifying the law. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5, and I'm gonna just start at verse 21. It says, Matthew 5 and verse 21, you have heard that it was said by them of old time. Where you heard of that? Old Testament.
Good point.
You shall not kill. All right, we know where we heard that at. We can go back to Exodus. We can find that. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say to you, now, I must make sure that you understand that this is Christ talking. This is Yahshua, the Mashiach, the son of Elohim. This is written in red. He says, but I say unto you, that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Reka, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, you fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Now, isn't that more difficult? He didn't make it easier. See, Creflo is saying that you can do whatever you want. Now, Moses' law said you were guilty if you murdered your brother. Christ's law said you are guilty if you are angry and have no just cause. And we have people angry with people, and people will tell you, oh, I can't stand that brother. Why? I don't know, man. I just don't like him. What did he do to you? Did he violate a commandment concerning you? Well, then you have no just cause. You are then angry with your brother without a cause. So this is how Christ magnified the law.
Right.
But see, we don't have to stop there. It just keeps going.
Yeah, and that's verse 27. So if you drop down to verse 27, it says, you have heard that it was said by them of old times.
Once again,
Yeah.
Old Testament. So Christ is going back and forth from the Old Testament and then setting forth these things that he is putting in the New. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh at a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
Wait a minute. So if we're going according to Christ's definition, we are in a much harder path. People walk around half naked today. See, this is why there's a dress code. Because if you are committing adultery by looking on a woman lustfully, how are you helping that situation if you're allowing your wife to go out? You're allowing your daughter to go out, and the new pants is the tights.
Oh, yeah.
Tights used to be what women wore under their dress. Now the dress has come off, and now they have on what I call long drawers.
Yeah.
That's what tights are. They're just long drawers.
Yeah.
And now you can go out and see a whole family in long drawers. The mama being long drawers, the daughters being long drawers. It's just a long drawers, little coalition just walking through the mall.
Don't forget about the grandma too.
Right.
Grandma got them.
You ain't lying. Grandma got them on too. Everybody got to show you what they're working with.
Right.
Right. But here's the problem. According to Christ, then, you are then causing people to possibly lust after you. And according to Christ, you have now committed adultery. And with Moses' law, he had to actually sleep with the woman to commit adultery.
Yep.
Christ's law, you didn't. So we have to then deal with where we're standing here with this thing. Did you finish that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's. I want to jump down to one in verse 31, because this is a big one here. It has been said, "Whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement." It has been said. Where was that said? That's the Old Testament again, right?
Yeah.
All right. Moses' law was give her a bill of divorce. All right. Give her a writing of divorce and send her away. Christ says, "But I say unto you, that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery." Wait a minute. So that whole thing that they are allowing now, irreconcilable differences and all of these things where they grant divorce, Christ said, was there outside, some fornication? If it says that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her, that is divorced, commits adultery. Wait a minute. You have people in the church that marry, divorce, marry, divorce, marry, divorce, and have no idea that, wait a minute, once the woman was divorced the first time, you have a serious problem all the way down that line. But when you can just keep going in and out of that law as it suits you, then you don't have to deal with any of these things. What Christ says, it says, according to Moshe's law, he then allowed you to divorce your wives because of the hardness of your hearts. But he says from the beginning, it was never so. What Elohim has put together, let no man cut asunder. But I've actually heard preachers announce their wedding and their divorce on the same day. If it don't work out, we're going to get a divorce. And that's exactly what ended up taking place. Because it was gone in, it was taking place in the beginning. It started with this twisted concept of not dealing with the doctrine that Christ has said. So what is amazing to me then, see, this is the part where you have to look at the hypocrisy of the entire matter. This means that the very people who are saying it's Satan that's trying to get you to keep the law, they operate, especially when it comes down to divorce, like the law. Because they just allow divorce, remarry, divorce, remarry. Christ says there's something seriously wrong with your constant divorce and remarrying. So the very people that are putting all of that on Satan and saying that it is the law, they operate when it comes down to that exactly like the law instead of the law of Christ.
Right. And I guess my thing is, if we're supposed to be a follower of Christ, and we see that Christ has absolutely no problem with the law.
Exactly.
None whatsoever.
None.
And it's just funny because they want to throw the law out the window. But if we read Matthew Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, you'll see that Christ had absolutely no problem with the law.
Right.
I mean, so if we read it here, it says, verse 23, it says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites."
Now, these scribes and Pharisees were the religious power people of the day. So I want you to pay attention to who the real scribes and Pharisees of today are. Go ahead.
And it says, "For you pay tithes of mint, anise, and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law."
Wait a minute. So now we have a serious thing here. So once again, this is in red. This is what the Mashiach is saying. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. For you pay tithe, and that's all we hear. Tithe. Over and over and over.
Right.
All right? But he says you have omitted. That means you left out the weightier, heavier matters of the law.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Christ saying there are heavier matters of the law than tithing. But I know we used to hear a tithing sermon every 2 Sundays. But Christ says there are heavier matters of the law than tithing. Go ahead.
Let's see if Christ says throw them away.
Okay.
Let's see. It says, for you, I'm just going to back up a little bit. It says, "For you pay tithes as mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law." And it says, "Judgment, mercy, and faith." Then it says, "These," which he's talking about the law, judgment, mercy, and faith. It says, "These ought you to have done."
Right.
"And not to leave the other undone." So these 4 Christ is saying that we should have done. We should have done the law. We should have done judgment, mercy, and faith. The Sunday morning Christians, pastors, are teaching that faith has nothing to do with the law.
Right.
They teach that it's separate. But you can see right here, the Hamashiach is saying that you should do all 4.
Right. But you know what the deepest part of dealing with that? He says you ought to have done these and not to leave the other undone.
Right.
So you should have done them both.
Yep.
Okay. But the hypocrisy was in taking one, the parts that's going to make you rich, which is tithing,
right,
and putting those over judgment, mercy, and faith. Putting tithing over that exposes that hypocrisy. And our thing there's a recording of Creflo actually saying, and this was bold and said in his teaching, if you don't pay tithe, you should be lined up in front of a firing squad and shot with an Uzi. And you can go on the internet and find these things. And he's saying it as a matter of fact. People are clapping about this. And here's the thing that I don't think people even take into consideration. He first is talking about tithing, which is an Old Testament law. Then he is talking about Old Testament punishment. There was no faith or mercy in being shot with an Uzi. Okay? Where is the faith and mercy in that? That if you don't tithe, so you can obviously then, according to Creflo's doctrine, you can sleep around. You don't have to keep any of the commandments, which means you can lie, steal, cheat, kill, do all of those things. But only if you don't tithe should you be shot with an Uzi. So liars shouldn't get shot. Adulterers shouldn't get shot. Thieves shouldn't get shot. Only the people who do not tithe. Now, go back to what Christ says. Verse 23. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe and then omit the weightier matters of the law. So when we get right down to the doctrine of Christ and what he has written in his book, it does not coincide with the doctrine that is coming from this great attack against Yahweh's holy law. We have to pay attention. There's a great war that is coming. The adversary, the devil, will be kicked out, he and his angels, and he comes to make war with the remnant of the seed which keep the commandments. You have to then ask yourself, why is he not making war with you? Because you have already joined on his side by not keeping the commandments. You have taken your allegiance with Creflo and the adversary, the devil. So the devil doesn't war against his own right away, but eventually he's going to war against them too, if he's able to get everything else he wants. He cares absolutely nothing about the flesh. So he uses the flesh. He taunts them and tease them with these things of riches. And because we want this money, we will then make these allegiances, but we will pay for those things later. So that's all that we're going to do for today. We pray that these things are enlightening unto you, and that our people will hear the word of the Most High. It is written, my sheep will hear my voice. Don't look at me and hear me. My sheep hear my voice. You're seeing me, you're hearing me, but if you are his sheep, you hear his word that came out of our mouths. Not about hearing us or seeing us and perceiving us to be whatever it is you want to be. Learn how to hear his word no matter where or who it comes from. Shalom.